Good God, if this heat wave keeps up, I think we're all gonna look like Zorga by the end of it. What's good, folks? I sincerely hope that wherever you live, the heat is nowhere near as bad as it is here. I think it's like 31 degrees in my room right now, and I am dying. That's Celsius, by the way. But let's cool off by dipping into the Cursed Seas with Mr. Zorga today. So we're gonna look at one of the first Stoicheia deck profiles that I'm doing. I do have Magnolia ready as well. That'll probably go up in like a couple days or something like that. But hold on tight because, you know, I kind of want to distribute them bit by bit. This should have gone up like at the start of the month, but I got super busy with BSFO prep that I didn't really get time to work on it and get it out. So apologies for that, but we are now on a good pace to get through all the deck profiles for DVTO1 throughout the, like, by the end of June at least. And I also got a couple for Festival Collection, but honestly, the only decks that I really think need to be talked about in terms of updates from Festival Collection are basically just Police and Bruce, and maybe Control Bastion, I guess. Kind of becomes better thanks to the new grade 3, and I guess Magnolia maybe, but not really that important. So anyway, let's start the deck profile as usual, looking at the ride deck here. So of course we have the 4 culprits. I'm going to zoom in though because we're super zoomed out here. All right, so here we go. These are the full 4 culprits for the Zorga deck that are fueling the entire engine and letting the whole thing work. Also, you're probably going to hear birds chirping outside. There's no way I'm closing the window when it's this hot. I should definitely record more videos when it's not this hot, but who knows. Anyway, of course, starter doesn't really matter what you use. You can try to bait your opponent by using the Magnolia starter. You can just be, you know, fit the aesthetic and use the Dream Nibbling, up to you. But of course, the card that turns on the whole engine is the Rancor Chain. So Rancor Chain says, Vanguard circle once per turn, Soul Blast 1 to draw 2, and choose up to 1 order card from your hand, discard it, and if you don't, then you have to discard 2. So of course you want to just put that order in the drop zone, so it's very important that you open one. And then in Reguard Circle, if you play an order this turn, he gets plus 2k power. It's okay, 10k boost is fine, but you don't really need it that much. And of course, when you Soul Blast this thing out, you can revive it later on with Zorga's effect, so that's also fine. Then the grade 2, Mr. Black Tears Husk Dragon, one of the sickest arts for Stoicheia. A lot of the players, like in my locals that don't play Vanguard or like don't know anything about Vanguard, like they are very tempted to play thanks to this card, which is pretty dope to see. And of course, when you ride him, you choose a normal order from your drop and put it into your hand. So you basically discard something with Rancor Chain, then add it back to your hand with the Husk Dragon. And then if you play an order this turn on Reguard Circle, he gets plus 5k power, so he's a consistent 15k attacker. So you want to basically have boards of 2 dragons and basically just bash the opponent every turn. And then of course the card that makes it all work is Mr. Zorga himself, Mysterious Reign Spiritualist. When you would play a normal order, you can bind a normal order with a different card name from your drop and Alchem Magic, which basically means you combine the 2 cards into 1. So normally, of course, in Vanguard you can only play 1 normal order per turn, but Zorga basically says actually 2. So it lets you just take a card, you know, a normal order from your drop zone and bind it to combine its effect to the one that you're playing normally, and so that's pretty cool. He also lets you once per turn count +1 to revive a card from your drop zone, which is really cool because you can revive quite a few good things. And you know, whether you want to revive like offensive cards like the Husk Dragon or defensive stuff like triggers and then bounce them back with the, of course, very amazing blitz order that is Ghost Chase, Zorga does the job for you. So very good card, and overall just a very powerful deck. Like, this is one of those like strong 3-attack decks, but of course the kind of like weak part of it is that, you know, your hand is often full with orders that you kind of end up, you know, I wouldn't say bricking, but you definitely do have like more dead cards in hand, let's just put it that way. All right, the birds literally started popping off. They were quiet this entire time. I was like, wow, finally I can record with my window open with the you know, with the birds not going crazy. But they heard me recording. They were like, oh, that's it. It's like when you record a video while streaming and like the whole chat goes like, hey YouTube. That's literally the birds right now. They're just going, hey YouTube. Can't blame them though. I can't blame them. I mean, it's hyped. They don't get this kind of spotlight very often. But of course, speaking of spotlights, we have our main grade 3, of course, the remaining 3 copies for Persona riding purposes. Zorga. Persona Ride also feels particularly important in this deck because it gives you 1 soul that you can use for your orders and stuff, because you do Soul Blast a fair bit. So of course the 3 remaining copies are very nice. And for once we have a deck where we actually play more copies of one of the ride deck cards. This is the grade 2, of course, the Husk Dragon. It's a 15k attacker, so you want to see 2 of him on the board at all times, basically, when you're trying to push. And so I think, you know, having 4 basically in the deck, including the right deck, is very nice. I've also split up this deck to go through the like normal units first, or like through the unit cards first, and then we're going to look at the orders afterwards, because there's a bit like wiggle room, I guess, there, whereas I think the normal, like the actual unit cards are kind of set. So speaking of unit cards, of course we have the MVP right now that kind of, you know, puts everything, you know, kind of like your engine, I guess, that turns everything on. Not really engine, huh? She's more of just like, you know, she mills your orders that lets you use the deck's engine. So Hendrina says when you call her, whether from hand or by reviving or whatever, you can mill 3. So milling, of course, means discarding the top cards of your deck into your drop. So pretty good effect, of course, lets you mill. If you're a good player, you will mill like 3 orders or like, you know, Husk Dragon and stuff like that. If you're a bad player, you will mill triggers, and your over trigger especially, you will mill every single time. And of course, you know, that's just how it goes. I'm also kidding, don't take that seriously, please. So just that mill skill is good. You don't want to overuse it, you don't want to deck yourself out, but using it like once or twice, 3 times per game, you know, that's pretty realistic. Then her second skill is act on rearguard circle. You may retire her 2 until end of turn. Basically say that you don't Soul Blast next time you would Alchemy Magic an order and play it. So this only works when you Alchemy Magic, so keep that in mind. If you were to play an order without Alchemy Magicking, this will not reduce the Soul Blast cost, but otherwise it will. And yes, if you Alchemy Magic, let's say Spiritual Body Condensation with the mill order that needs Soul Blast 2, you will indeed still pay 0 Soul Blast, which is really sick. So yeah, so she's the good card. Like, she helps us to kind of like, you know, live the long game as well, because she, like, you can revive her and then just, you know, kind of use her second skill to make it so that you can actually like play some orders without having to pay any Soul Blast, which you do run out of you know, after a while, I guess, because also you're grade 1 Soul Blast, so there's just a lot of cards Soul Blasting in this deck. So that's like a lot of the resources that are normally used in the game, like this deck uses them all. And then speaking of reviving, one of the best revived targets is of course the Bug Lord, that is Admantis. So Admantis is a simple card, but it's a good card. You know, it doesn't have to be flashy and crazy to be good. Admantis is just when placed on rearguard circle, he gives another rearguard plus 5k power. So you basically just want to, like, you call him down or you guard with him, and then you revive him with Zorga, revive him with your orders. In Magnolia, is also nice because, you know, you can aggress with it, but it's just nice. Like, this card is cool. It lets you make your columns better, makes you like choose, like, turn your power columns into ones that are more annoying to guard, that your opponent has to drop like 2 more cards to guard, so it's like 33 and stuff like that. So really good. Like, this plus the dragon on their own is like 23 on Persona, right? That's 33, or within the orders that's 33, so making it 38 is even more annoying from your opponent. Actually no, that's 215k guard, so who knows if it's more annoying, but it's 4 of, because it's a good card. Like, you just want to see it, you want to have it, it's great. All right, then we have of course 4 PGs. Goes without saying we play the one from the booster set, because of course, you know, this is nice to, like, sometimes I guess discard like your key pieces, or if you have too many orders in hand, but otherwise of course not having to discard when you have a low hand is always going to be great. I think these cards don't really need an explanation, to be honest, anymore. Alright, now I'll look through the triggers, and then after that we're going to talk about the orders. So first we have, of course, the Blessed Favor. Blessed Favor is the Stoicheia overtrigger, and I think it's one of the better ones, purely because it never hurts to check it no matter when you do, because it basically is an Omni trigger, right? It draws, it gives something a crit, it gives your front row plus 10k, and if your damage zone has more cards or equal to, there's an errata, keep that in mind, you also heal. So it's a heal, draw, front, crit, and also the overtrigger draws you an extra card, so it's like draw 2 technically. So it's like, I like to call it an Omni trigger, and Blessed Favor is like super nice for that reason. So yeah, I think that this card is it's like the go-to. I see no reason to play any other overtrigger in Stoicheia other than the Stoicheia one, unless it's in premium, but in standard at least I think that this is really the one that you want to go for, because it just does so much. Like, even if you check it turn 1, it still does a lot. Like, it's just a good card. I think it's just simply a good card, and there's nothing to really like to be discussed there. Then I play 3 fronts. We can kind of like zoom out for the triggers here. So we got 3 fronts here. I do prefer fronts over draws, because I think that they can really help you to, like, I've lost games because of fronts and stuff like that, you know, because Zorga is really popular. Like, a lot of people play this deck, and I was quite surprised, didn't expect it to be that popular, but it seems to be the case. Then of course we play 8 crit. That goes without saying, you know, this deck wants to push big numbers, and you know, with big numbers and an extra crit, that means GG, so that's very good. And then 4 heals, because heals are always going to be good, and also just, you know, healing out important cards in your damage zone that you want to, you know, revive later on with Zorga is also very cool. So that's the triggers. Now let's take a look at the actual orders, and I think here is where like wiggle room starts to appear, and so we're going to carefully talk about this, because I don't, you know, carefully listen as well, because I don't want people going like, oh my god, you said I have to play this and this, and but I think I should play this. So I think this will immediately start discussions. I play 3 Grief, Despair, and Rejection, but you can play 4. I think it's perfectly fine to play 4, but this card is of course very important, right? It's a counterblast 1 to, as long as you have Zorga as your Vanguard, give 3 units plus 10k. So it's essentially a Persona Ride level of a buff, so that on turn 3 you can already be making like 33k plus columns, which is insane, right? You push so much damage thanks to that, and it's a great card. But I think 3 is okay because like you basically want to, you're kind of counterblasting like 2 per turn in many cases, because you counterblast 1 for this, counterblast 1 for Zorga. So I feel like you're okay not seeing the 4th one as much. And of course, like the turns where you don't see this kind of hurt, but at the same time I think having the revive 2, like 1 from Zorga and 1 from Spiritual Body Awakening, sorry, not Awakening, Condensation, is arguably more important because it gives you that field presence and you can still make like 23k columns pretty well. So I don't know, I think you can play 4 of this and less of the other orders, but I also think 3 is fine and it hasn't really come up in like a bad way for me. And then I do play 2 of the Curse, Souls, Squirming, and Agony. I think this is probably the worst order, just because like I wouldn't say it's worst, but it's the least best. Let's put it that way. Like, you know, it's the half full, half empty argument. It's still a good order, but it's nowhere near as like crazy as the other ones. So you can Soul Blast 2 to look at top 4, choose 1 unit card from among them, call it to Rearguard Circle, and discard the rest. But if you use this order with Alchemagic, you can call 2 from top 4 instead of 1, and the called units get plus 5k. So of course that's pretty huge skill, right? I've seen a lot of people use this pretty aggressively, you know, to just like mill through their deck, you know, put all their orders into the drop zone. And I think like playing this card once or twice per game is basically perfect. And just with, keep in mind, thanks to like the way that Alchemagic works, when you play this, use the effect once, and then when you Alchemagic it away to bind it, you use it a second time. So each card is kind of like, each normal order can basically be used twice in one copy. It's literally a 2 for 1, like, I don't know, buy one get one free at your local supermarket. You know, it's great. But I think this card, like the Soul Blast 2, if you don't have Hendrina, is really heavy because this deck is Soul Blasting 1 for Spiritual Body every turn. And I also think that the mill 4 can actually kind of like bite you in the long run sometimes. Also, I really hope you don't hear my fan when I'm recording this because yeah, that's another survival tool for me when recording these. But like, I think this is like a good order because it does help you mill, and the plus 5 is very valuable, don't get me wrong there either, but it has some like downsides that I think make it, you know, a card that I really don't want to see more than like 2 copies of, and I generally just want to see it once per game, and I'm pretty much happy with that already. Then of course we have the, in my opinion, best normal order, which is the Spiritual Body Condensation. So I like this card a lot. I use it in Magnolia as a 4 as well because this to me is a Monster Reborn. This is, you know, Soul Blast 1 to choose a card with grade equal to or less than your Vanguard from your drop, call it to Rearguard Circle, and it gets plus 5k. So it's quite simply, you know, Soul Blast 1 to revive something, give it 5. Like, this is a Monster Reborn. Like, and it's not necessarily just in Zorga either. I think in any Stoicheia deck going forward, which is why I recommend people to like pick up multiple proxy, like multiple copies or playsets of this if you want to play more Stoicheia decks in the future. Like we're seeing there's, you know, the Maelstrom, the, you know, totally not Maelstrom, or Alolan Maelstrom as people are calling it. I think this will be played in that too. Like, a Monster Reborn is good in whatever deck has access to it, and I think that, you know, playing 4 of it is, in my opinion, kind of natural. It's just that, like, this feels good to play no matter what, and I would rather like also like, you know, be able to revive 2 Husk Dragons per turn rather than revive 1 and then power up like a Mantis or something instead, because I couldn't get the other one out of my drop zone because I only had Zorga to revive stuff with. So I don't know, I think that Spiritual Body like Condensation is just really nice. 4 of, in my opinion, it's just really good. And then the final card, of course, is the best card in Stoicheia period, Ghost Chase. This is the coolest Blitz order so far, and so far like set 2 has some cool Blitz orders, but we still have to see the full set list next week. But nothing really matches how amazing this card is for me so far, even in set 2. Of course, Blitz orders are also once per turn, and they cannot be Alchemagicked, of course, only normal orders can. But when you use it during your opponent's battle, you can choose one of your units and give it plus 5k until the end of that battle, and choose a rearguard that's not being attacked and return it to hand. So in Zorga, this is particularly interesting because you can revive stuff that you want to bounce back. So for example, you milled or you guarded with your over trigger, you can revive it with Zorga or with Spiritual Body and bounce it back to hand with Ghost Chase, guard with it again, do the same thing next turn if you have more Ghost Chases, right? You want to Persona Ride, revive a Zorga, use Ghost Chase to bounce it back to hand, and then Persona Ride next turn. You know, there's a lot of potential in this card, which is why I really like it, and I think that especially in Zorga, this card has some really nice potential. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I think it's just a great Blitz order, and it will be a staple in my opinion in any Stoicheia deck, and you know, Alolan Maelstrom is included in that list. Alright, now quickly talking about discard targets for the Ride deck. I think this deck in particular is super flexible because it's the one deck that can revive stuff from the drop zone. So anything you discard for the Ride deck can can be brought back, and so therefore it doesn't have as much of like a, oh no, this card is gone for the rest of the game feeling as it does in other decks. So I think for that reason you don't have to worry about it as much, and like virtually almost anything is discardable, which is pretty cool. But I think, you know, this, you know, the Husk Dragon of course is great to discard because it's something you want to revive and basically just bring back and bash with, so it's definitely good. Same light, you know, for Admantis, you know, it's fine to discard it because you bring it back and give 5k to something. I think Hendrina as well, you know, discard it, bring it back, mill 3, it's also perfectly fine. So a lot of these cards are just like nice discardables. Of course, orders themselves, like normal orders, are pretty much fine to be discarded for the right deck too, because you can Alchemagic them away, right? You want to be discarding orders, not specifically these two, but like just in general, like normal orders are fine to discard as long as you have some in hand left to Alchemagic with, because of course if you've put them all in the drop zone but have nothing in hand to actually like play normally, then you won't be able to do anything. So that's a pretty important point. So yeah, I think the discard targets in this deck in particular for the Rhine deck are super flexible, so just basically like just see how the game goes. All right, so now let's look at our usual like, you know, optimal board states. This can be as early as turn 3, you know, you're just sitting on Zorga, you got like, you know, your Husk Dragons out, some 8k booster just to make that 23k column here, and of course, you know, Husk Dragon can be revived with Zorga, you know, whatever way you use to get to it is perfectly fine, so don't worry about it too much. So I mean, we can even pretend here, right, that we counterblasted 1 for Zorga's effect, you know, to revive this Husk Dragon, you know, just to be more realistic. And then we're going to Alchemagic, so we're going to play the Condensation from hand, Alchemagic it with the Grief, Despair, and Rejection. So of course, the way the sequencing goes is you first pay the cost for the actual one you play from hand, and then you pay the cost for the one you play from drop zone by Alchemagicking. So you know, that's the cost paid, and then you resolve the effect. So first, of course, we're going to use Spiritual Body to revive, let's say, Admantis from the drop zone, so it's going to revive. We're going to resolve the effect later. We have to finish resolving these first, so it's going to get 5k, very nice. And then what's going to happen is, you know, as we've paid both costs, this is going to resolve essentially to, oh sorry, yeah, this needs to be counterblasted. This will resolve to give 3 units plus 10k, so just give 10, 10, 10, and there you go. This is now 33, 23, 33, so like you're going for big numbers. This is going to get bound, so you know, bind it wherever you keep your bind zone and put the one that you played from hand into the drop zone, and they're basically just swinging for big numbers, you know, and just vibing, essentially just swinging for huge numbers. And that's basically how this works. Like every turn you want to replicate that, basically just replicate this kind of like combination in some shape or form. I'm so sorry if you see bumps on my hand, they're all mosquito bites because it's again heat wave moment. So yeah, like this is kind of your optimal board, what you want to be aiming for, just making these like nasty little 33k columns and just punching big from very early on. All right, let's go. This is your favorite segment, the Mulligan time. So this is where we look at how to mulligan and, you know, how to set up the early game for this deck and just kind of the general pace that this deck kind of undertakes. You know, I like to do this. It's nice to kind of visualize how the plays work and what your early game looks like and things like that for these deck profiles. So let's just run it down as we usually do. So draw 5. Let's see what our opening hand is here. So of course, first, oh, very important. How could I forget? We have to roll dice and see who's going to go first. Let me see what kind of 2 dice I'm going to pick out of this to see who's gonna go first. I think I got this is so these are ones that Scarlet sent me a really long time ago. I made a video about them, so we're gonna use these. Got a nice little Daikaiser one, we got a nice little Ultmile one. So Daikaiser is me, Ultmile is my opponent. Let's go. All right, this is 4, and that's damn it, there's a power one. We gotta redo it. All right, enough risking it. Let's do like this again. So this will be me, this will be the opponent. Wow. Let's see it. All right, I'm going first. Perfect. Zorga going first. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. All right, so knowing that we're going first, triggers, of course, are going to go back. That goes without saying. This, though, I like to keep 1 order in hand just for the grade 1, so that we know that we're actually going to be, like, fine. So we're going to put 4 back here, and, you know, we just need that 1 order, basically, to reuse it with our starter, you know, with our grade 1 from the right deck. Get another one, a Ghost Chase. Oh dear. All right, this is going to be Order City. This is where discarding orders for the right deck is going to come in handy. So, all right, we're going first, so let's go. All right, draw for turn. Get basically nothing cool, so we're going to just discard the Grief Despair to ride into the grade 1 here, and then we're going to use a skill to Soul Blast 1, draw 2, into a crit and a PG. That's pretty fine actually, and let's just discard this for the cost, and that's it. So we pass. Opponent attacks, you know, it gives us 1 damage. Very cool. We're all fine with that. And then we go back to our turn here. Here it's like I don't really want to keep discarding orders too much because I kind of want to keep this in hand for later. So let's discard a trigger. We can Ghost Chase it back later, so that's no problem. Go into the grade 2. Grade 2's effect. Gonna recur this back to hand, so that's all good. Oh, sorry, not this one. I forgot that we have the not the nibbling, this one. That's what we want back in hand. That's what we always want in hand. So that's perfectly fine. We don't really have anything, like some people like to call Hendrina early, but we don't have her, so we're gonna just swing here for 10 and hit the Hendrina. Wow, look at that, perfect timing. All right, cool. So our opponent's gonna hit us, maybe crit us, you know, as they do. Admantis, nothing cool in the damage zone, very sad, very sad. And then we're gonna basically just go bop. All right, so now this hand is looking pretty juicy, but again, in terms of orders, I don't want to like super overcommit, so I'm gonna just like discard a crit again. You know, this hand is pretty big already as it is. So go up to Zorga. So now that we're on Zorga, we can start doing shenanigans. Our drop zone's kind of weak, so let's call Hendrina first and just mill the 3 top cards and see. Well, as you can see, I'm a really good player, so, you know, I milled orders and stuff like that. So of course, that's very nice. I'm pretty happy to Soul Blast in the early game, so for now, I think we're going to be okay. Let's set up for the Zorga Persona, right? So we're going to basically, you want to also counterblast the cards that you want to like heal out into the drop zone. So we're gonna counterblast the Admantis here and revive. Hold on, my top card of my deck is slipping away. We're gonna revive the Zorga here, so we can actually take him back later. We could even theoretically like move him back or whatever. You know, it doesn't really matter. We're gonna do some stuff with him, so it's all cool. And then let's Alchemagic. You know, using Spiritual Body Condensation, Alchemagicking with the Grief, Despair, and Rejection. So of course we pay the cost. So here I didn't use Hendrina because I want to Soul Blast out the Husk Dragon, because as you can see I don't have any, didn't mill any, so it's kind of sad. Then pay the Counterblast 1. We're going to Counterblast the Hendrina because we want her in the drop zone from being healed away at some point. And then we're going to essentially revive something. So we can revive, like basically you can revive whatever you want. I have a Ghost Chase target here already, so I can kind of like bait that a little bit and just call Husk Dragon here. And then of course Counterblast 1 we already did, plus 10 to these, so that's all good. This is going to go to the drop zone and this is going to get bound. So looking pretty good so far. We can basically just start swinging here. So we have 23, 20, 25. So you can start, you know, we're going first, our opponent's grade 2, so we can just start with the 23 first, see if we hit a front or something. We hit a crit, that's also pretty good. So crit Vanguard, power can go here for example, and then of course, oh, Husk Dragon, that's pretty good too. And we basically just swing, 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 and that's it. Next turn comes, you know, we get hit with 1 damage, get a front, that's very nice. And then we're going to basically just Ghost Chase to take this back to hand, so we can Persona Ride next turn. So that's also very cool, but that probably isn't enough guards, so we're going to just add the crit to it as well, and then basically just drop a PG because our opponent's like hitting us with something massive, you know, as they do. We can just like drop the Husk Dragon and, you know, revive it next turn. And then once again, you know, it's stand and draw time. Nothing too crazy here. Draw. Oh, we drew into the Persona Ride anyway because, you know, that's how it goes. Persona Ride, get a Ghost Chase in hand, very nice. Then we can use Hendrina here to now save on the Soul Blast cost. And this time around, we're going to Alchemagic. Actually, before Alchemagicking, we want to actually revive the Husk Dragon, because now we will not actually have the, let's see, like, because if you resolve this first, you have to target the 3 units to give plus 10k to is like immediately, so you don't have a target if you use it first. So we have to use Zorga's first skill, or second skill rather, to Counterblast 1, and let's just revive the Husk Dragon here. And then we're gonna use this to Alchemagic with the Spiritual Body that we used last turn. So that's what I mean, like you use like 1 card twice essentially. It's quite cool. So we play this, so we're going to Counterblast 1 first, and then we're going to Soul Blast 1, but we use Hendrina so we don't Soul Blast, which is very nice, you know, cash money. So first we have to use this to give these plus 10k, and then we're going to use the grade 1. So this one will go to drop zone, this will go here. So we're going to use the revive skill here to just revive a PG, because that is, you know, again, we're just trying to bait, those nice Alchemagic, you know, like we're trying to bait those Ghost Chases, you know, make our opponent think that we have Ghost Chase in hand. Even if you don't, you want to try to bait it, so it's always like a very powerful move. And this will have plus 5k too, so not the most optimal line so far, but they're pretty good. Like these are attacking for like what, 35 each, so that's pretty nasty when you think about it. So this coming in with 33 plus 6, that's 39 plus 5, 44. You know, just again, PG, Hendrina, very cool. And then just swing with these big old numbers. So that's basically how the deck works. Like you're just eternally going through it. Of course, now next turn, like if I don't hit, let's say like an order or something, you know, if I don't draw it off the top, I'm in a bit of a pickle. So I have to like rely on the Persona Ride, for example, to see if I draw something off of that, to, you know, see if we can like go into something. And then, you know, at times you don't, at times you do. It just kind of, you know, you see how the cookie crumbles and what kind of hand you get given, and you play around with it. And that's basically it for Zorga. So hopefully you guys, you know, got something out of this video. Basically just showed you how the deck is built. I think a lot of the builds look very similar right now. Like it's pretty hard to go wrong with the deck build for Zorga. But I think it's very much just like what you prioritize, how you play it out, like your early game, and how you plan ahead a little bit with those, like, you know, the normal orders and Alchemagicking. And the, you know, just the fact that you have to really think about how each normal order in your deck, you basically will use twice. Like, you know, it's a card that, you know, you play once normally and then you Alchemagic it away. So you use literally the same card 2 times. And that's something you really have to kind of keep in mind as you go through it. So yeah, this deck is definitely very fun. I think it's, you know, Stoicheia decks are both really enjoyable, even though I'm not a big fan of Stoicheia normally, but I think, you know, this deck in particular in set 2 has some really spicy upgrades, so I can't wait to see its future potential as well. And even right now, it has some really sick plays that I think a lot of people really do like. So that's it. That's all I want to talk about today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, you know, give it some love, drop a like. If you like the videos I make, drop a sub. I really appreciate the support that you guys give to the channel. And it's also, of course, what keeps me going. But that's going to be it for me today. If you also need to pick up any of the cards, go to parkage.com, use discount code DifferentFight for 5% discount at checkout. And you can get all these cards on there as well, I think. So that's pretty good. Anyway, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.